Chinese authorities have confirmed today a further 25 fatal victims of the coronavirus. At least 56 people have died in southeast Brazil, and more than 28,000 have been displaced due to floods caused by heavy rains. US President Donald Trump has offered details of his Middle East peace plan, described as the deal of the century. From the headquarters of Telesur English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm Katrina Goss. Chinese President Xi Jinping held a meeting on Tuesday with the World Health Organization Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus to discuss the coronavirus epidemic. The Chinese president vowed the country will win the fight against the coronavirus that has now killed 131 people, according to the latest reports. The WHO has confirmed at least 4,500 cases of infection. Meanwhile, as well as the 2 new hospitals being built in Wuhan, authorities announced that a further 14 hospitals will be taken over for urgent use in relation to the coronavirus.
Wuhan has started to urgently build 2 hospitals, namely Huo-Shenshan Hospital and Lieshan Hospital, which are scheduled to provide 2,300 beds. The construction of Huo-Shenshan Hospital is to be completed by February the 2nd, and then will be transferred to military management as we have military medical teams. The construction of the Lieshan Hospital will be finished on February 5th. In addition, as the 4th batch of hospital deployment, Wuhan City will take over 14 hospitals for urgent use, including the new hospital of the Dongji Medical College under the Huazhong University of Science and Technology and the Renmin Hospital of Wuhan University. A total of over 10,000 beds will be enough for the current suspected and confirmed cases, including those who are running fever and still under medical observations.
And France has confirmed a 4th case of the new coronavirus that emerged in China. The patient is an elderly Chinese tourist who is in intensive care in a Paris hospital. French Public Health Director Jérôme Solomon told reporters that the patient was suffering from a severe case of the coronavirus and needed constant care. 3 other people have already been hospitalized in France with the virus and were the first cases reported in Europe. All reported cases so far have involved patients who had recently visited China. And the director of the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention announced on Tuesday the activation of an emergency operations center by the organization.
We have developed and circulated a weekly brief for the outbreaks to all member states and the diplomatic corps. We have engaged several African Union member states through their national public health institutes, which will be the equivalent of the CDC's, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, to begin to network with them to coordinate our efforts in several areas. Firstly, enhanced airport screening, laboratory support, care and treatment, and care and treatment of patients.
More stories coming up. Don't go away. Welcome back. At least 56 people have died in southeast Brazil and more than 28,000 have been displaced due to floods caused by heavy rains. The city of Belo Horizonte has been the hardest hit, with 37 people dead and a further 25 missing. According to the Brazil's National Institute of Meteorology, on Friday the city registered the highest recorded rainfall in the area in 110 years. And thousands of people rallied outside El Alto Airport in Bolivia to greet presidential candidate Luis Arce on his arrival from Argentina. Social movements gathered from early in the morning, giving a warm welcome to the candidate for the Movement Towards Socialism Party and his running mate, David Choquehuanca. This is Arce's first time back in Bolivia since he was officially nominated to represent the MAS party in the upcoming general elections. But shortly after his arrival, the de facto government served Arce with a legal notice in relation to an investigation into the alleged breach of his duties. According to the notice, Arce is expected in court on Wednesday to be questioned by prosecutors. This investigation was announced just one day after his nomination as candidate for the MAS party and comes as part of the ongoing persecution of party members and supporters. And unilateral sanctions imposed on Venezuela continue to harm its people. Despite this fact, members of the opposition continue to demand more sanctions, this time from the European Union. More in this report.
The maritime trade and access to medicine could be greatly affected by a possible increase in sanctions coming from the European Union against Venezuela. This will come to pass if opposition figure Juan Guaidó gets his wish, as he asked international governments for their help during a speech at the Davos Economic Forum.
We must give further use to the tools that the free world has. Sanctions have been controversial, but they are the only tools we have to face off against these regimes, and they must be used with a steady hand.
Guaidó's European trip put on full display the diplomatic and political contradictions that his backers use to justify their support, as the lawmaker continues to dispute his self-proclaimed role as president of the National Assembly of Venezuela.
In the global stage, Europe does not hold the same weight as in the last century. Now the real economic power is in emerging countries, and there is a rupture in the guidelines given by Washington. Some European officials recognize Guaidó as the president of the National Assembly and others as interim president. His visit was unsuccessful. There were no diplomatic results.
The decision by Spain's government to not recognize him in his self-proclaimed role and of President Sanchez to not meet with him further hurt his tour.
Promoting economic sanctions so that people suffer, to try and overthrow a democratic government and to avoid dialogue and peace is a mistake. In my opinion, the principles of peaceful coexistence and of resolving issues by talking need to have a stronger role, especially after what we have seen happen in the Middle East.
Since 2018, the European Union has imposed sanctions on Venezuelan officials, but various investigations confirm that the measures always end up affecting the people of Venezuela, contrary to what the United States and the opposition claim.
The right wing lies through its teeth to their supporters, telling them sanctions only hurt the government. The truth is sanctions directly hurt oil production, food and medicine imports, and other industries. They are a direct attack on our people.
Guaidó embodies the submission of someone who says he stands for the Venezuelan state. This leaves a bad taste in the mouth of those governments that chose to welcome him. Because he has no concept of sovereignty and legitimacy, he wants us to be a colony.
In the meantime, Venezuela continues to build up its relationship with allied countries like China and Russia in order to import medicine and food. The government is also expanding its work with the United Nations to fight the outcome of sanctions.
A full ceremonial military display has taken place at the opening of the historic Red House in Trinidad and Tobago. The regiment, Coast Guard, Police and Air Force Reserves participated. All 42 members of Parliament and 31 senators attended the event. The original building was ironically destroyed in a fire in the 1903 water riots and rebuilt in 1907. It was also the scene of a showdown between law enforcement and members of the Jamaat al-Muslimin, who staged a coup to overthrow the government on July 27, 1990. The Red House is one of the 5 historic buildings in Port of Spain and was restored after more than a decade to the tune of $65 million, a figure the government has defended.
We are traveling people, and we go to other people's countries and we marvel at their symbolism and their symbols. In Australia, we marvel at the Sydney Opera House. In Washington, we spend vacations staring at the Capitol and the obelisk. And in London, we look at the Palace of Westminster and we don't ask how much it costs to maintain. Ladies and gentlemen, I've seen it said that we should have spent the money that we did on renovation here on social services and feeding the poor. We did both. We spent the $5 billion a year on social support services, and we spent the money in renovating and restoring our parliament.
An earthquake of 7.1 magnitude was felt in Jamaica, the Cayman Islands and Cuba today at 14:23 local time. The quake, which struck in the sea between the three countries, was initially measured at 7.3 magnitude, but according to the director of the Cuban Seismological Service, it was of magnitude 7.1. So far, no material damages or human losses have been reported. We advise viewers to remain alert to any warnings or further information issued by the relevant Jamaican or Cuban authorities. And the quake was also felt in the Cayman Islands. Residents in Georgetown on the island of Grand Cayman gathered on sidewalks outside the main hospital and buildings throughout the city. There were no immediate reports of deaths, injuries or severe damage.
The initial forecast information on the tsunami potential, the tsunami threat was put at a wave at between 0.3 to 1 meter in height. Okay, its arrival time for the Cayman Islands, 2:20 p.m. for Cayman Brac and 2:48 p.m. for Grand Cayman. Given that those times have passed and we do not have a significant report of a significant wave coming on shore, I would think that the tsunami threat from the initial wave has passed.
And Antigua and Barbuda's Prime Minister Gaston Brown has thanked the international community for its assistance in his country's development. Among other nations, Brown mentioned Cuba, Venezuela, Japan, the Dominican Republic, Mexico and the Republic of Korea. Likewise, he also voiced special recognition for China.
Hundreds of millions of dollars provided by China in grants, technical assistance and concession loans have supported infrastructure, education, energy, national security, housing, sports, and community development projects. Is this the action of a country that is seeking to colonize us? Clearly not. The significance of the support provided by the government and people of China cannot be overstated.
And thousands of Cubans took part in the historic March of the Torches to commemorate the 167th anniversary of the birth of national hero José Martí. Let's take a look.
At the historic stairs of the University of Havana, everything was ready for the march. Havana once again became witness to an event that pays tribute to one of the island's most important heroes. Close to 30,000 people marched to the old San Lázaro quarry, as they also paid tribute to a similar march in 1953, held in defiance of the then dictator Fulgencio Batista.
Martí is one of the pillars of the revolution. Fidel used many of his ideas to walk the path that he did, to have a successful revolution and to make Cuba what it is today. Martí's most beautiful gift is his love for all people.
This year's march also took time to condemn recent acts of vandalism on statues of the national hero that were financed by counter-revolutionary groups based in Miami.
This march has a historic vision, and we stand in solidarity with Cuba. Marching today is very important to show that Cuba is not alone.
But it wasn't just Cubans who paid tribute to José Martí. Among the masses, there were also people from a number of international social and student movements.
This march has a historic vision, and we stand in solidarity with Cuba. Marching today is very important to show that Cuba is not alone.
This is how Cubans and people from abroad pay tribute to José Martí, by carrying the torch of dignity and defending just causes around the world.
We're taking one last break now, but stay with us. Welcome back. US President Donald Trump has presented details of his Middle East peace plan, promising to keep Jerusalem as Israel's undivided capital. Trump proposed a two-state solution and said no Israelis or Palestinians would be uprooted from their homes. Standing alongside Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the White House, Trump said his proposals could be the last opportunity for Palestinians. The territory allocated to Palestinians in the map drawn up in Trump's plan will remain open and undeveloped for a period of 4 years. Trump said that during that time, Palestinians would be able to study the deal, negotiate with Israel, and achieve the criteria for statehood.
We're not going to pass it by.
And meanwhile, thousands of Gazans held demonstrations protesting against US President Donald Trump's Middle East peace plan on Tuesday. In Gaza City, demonstrators set fire to posters of Trump after placing them on the ground for people to tread on.
We will do everything that is in our power as national and Islamic factions to fail this plan. I assure you that we are all united in facing and making this plan fail. This plan is sent to end the Palestinian cause, and we hold the American administration and the Zionist occupation responsible for any retaliations and unrest in the region that would follow the announcement of this plan. The situation after the announcement shouldn't be the same as before, and the American administration should feel that its interests in the region are under threat. Trump and the American administration should review their calculations about this plan. This is a suspicious plan. It should be taken down, and the Palestinians will steadfast, and all of the Palestinians reject this plan.
Anti-government demonstrators rebuilt torch protest camps across Iraq on Monday as more than a dozen countries condemned the lethal reaction by security forces. The renewed pressure on the Iraqi government came a day after 3 rockets hit the US embassy in Baghdad, wounding 1 person and marking a serious escalation after months of close calls against US facilities. Youth-led protests erupted on October 1st over corruption, unemployment and poor public services, but were met with violence that has left nearly 480 people dead. On Monday, 16 ambassadors to Iraq issued a joint statement condemning the excessive and lethal use of force by Iraqi security forces and demanding the government allow citizens to protest freely in Baghdad and the south of the country.
Repression of protesters is a shame because students are demonstrating peacefully and they are only carrying flags and using their voices, but they are facing tear gas and bullets.
The government is not answering our demands and is using oppression. This will make us more stubborn, and we will continue our protest until they realize our demands. We, as students, we are protesting to demand an independent prime minister accepted by the people and to ask for an electoral law and anticipated elections.
Iranian President Hassan Rouhani called for a massive turnout in next month's parliamentary elections, expected to be challenging for the coalition government, during a televised speech to mark the inauguration of water sanitation projects near Tehran.
We are on the verge of a very important national election in February. We hope that all our people will come to the polls and participate, because these elections will have consequences for our regional and international policy.
And a group of Iranian lawmakers on Tuesday asked Parliament to debate a motion for Iran to withdraw from the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons. A report on the Assembly's news website Ikana said a minimum number of lawmakers had signed a request to arrange a debate on the motion for Iran to adopt the far-reaching step of withdrawing from the Non-Proliferation Treaty. Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif said last week that Iran could withdraw from the treaty if European countries refer the country to the UN Security Council over the 2015 nuclear deal, a move that would overturn diplomacy in Tehran's relations with Western powers. And Liberia is set to relaunch offshore oil and gas exploration after years of stagnation. President George Weah said the government plans to send out a call for bids to resume offshore exploration in April. About 9 offshore blocks will open to investment from international oil and gas companies. The development will see the country's fuel industry revived after years out of operation due to economic and political challenges.
My fellow Liberians, I am pleased to announce to you today that the government of Liberia, through the Liberia Petroleum Regulatory Authority, will open up the entire Harper Basin during the next lesson round beginning in April. 9 offshore blocks will be put up, allowing competent and reputable international oil and gas companies to bid with the hope of recommencing exploration program.
And we've come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Katrina Goss. Thank you for watching.